Yeah, I think, I mean, everybody wants a happy ending, and something, there's a lot of things in this that aren't happy in our times, but also within, the real problems within, global warming and all of that. But at the end of the day, if we can't believe that we can change it, then there's no reason,
just give up.
Yeah, to do any of those things. So I think it's really, what's really important to make this sustainable movement sustainable is to give people stories, real stories of people who have done something amazing, and when on Big Ideas, we found all these people from, we did everything from a guy who's, turning his truck into a vegetable oil running machine to Google, and in that spectrum of people, there's no wider spectrum, but everybody cares about what they're doing, on whatever scale they're doing it. And at the end of every story, there's somebody who's saying to you, look what I did, and you can be part of it. And I think there's actually probably very few big movements in our country right now, that really are that inclusive. Because no matter who you are, where you live, or what you do, there's a space for you in this movement and something for you to do. And it's very gratifying to see when people kind of grab onto that part that really means something to them. And a lot of times when you and I were talking about this, a lot of times it's only one part. They're like, I only care about this part. And for me, that's okay. Like, just care a lot about that part, and someone else will care a lot about that part. And a few people care about it all, but as long as we're all doing something,
It's amazing. Okay, so we're getting up close to the point where we're going to ask some questions, but before we do, I would love, this is kind of a different tack, but I would like to ask you each to respond to the question, do you feel hopeful about the success of this movement in your role in it? I mean, do you have a positive vision, or do you wake up dreading it every day? I would just love to hear a little bit about your vision of what you see that all this is leading towards in your own work.
I'm an optimist by nature, but I think as a company and an organization, we all feel very strongly that we're going to again move forward from the current situation. I'm very hopeful. It's a cliche, but in challenge, there's great opportunity, and I think I'm seeing it all around us. And I think that's what the magazine is really about. We're talking a lot tonight about how to motivate people and how to educate people. And the traditional environmental movement has had tremendous successes, but it's come up short in terms of making those fundamental changes. And I think one of the reasons is that it has relied on scare tactics and guilt. And given the situation all around us, it's easy to see why people move to that method and those techniques. It's a dire situation. But I think to really motivate people, you have to inspire them. You have to entertain them. You have to amuse them. It has to be attractive. And I think that's what good is about. Good's about a different kind of good. It's not a soft good. It's an aggressive good. It's a hard good. It's a well-designed good. It's a beautiful good. It's a compassionate good. And it's all of these things. It's about having a hybrid for all of those reasons. It's not one or the other. It's doing well and doing good. It's embodying all these things at once. So I'm full of hope. I think our company is full of hope.
That's great. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely full of hope, and I think that it's going to come down to, businesses. It's going to start with the businesses, and I think that it's going to need the support of the media and of some really strategic marketing to get to the core of it, which is going to be all of us, the consumers, to really start changing how we move through it on a daily basis, and to be supported by, people creating the content and to make it cool and make it fun and make it sexy. But I think that, there is a huge shift, and so I'm hopeful that that we're at the beginning of this wave, and the wave's just going to get stronger. And I see it, with my son and all his friends. They're enthusiastic about it, and I see hope in that movement too. That if we, as good parents, sort of instill in them what we're all starting to learn about and doing in our daily lives, that they'll continue what we've started. So I absolutely am hopeful, and I don't see any reason that we can't shift this.
I'm hopeful because I've really bet a lot of my financial future on this thing really working out. But aside from that, I'm also hopeful because I think that, I guess that's hopeful in a different way, like I'm really hoping it works. But I also think...
It's like you're in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, go green, everything on green.
Maybe there's a show in there.
But I also think that, we're also a tough people. I mean, it's a very general statement, but we're pushy. America's pushy, and they're not going to settle for things that aren't great and don't live up to their standards. And so, to a degree, we have no choice but to succeed because, quite frankly, a lot of people say we can't. And that generally tends to ignite a lot of, well, you can't tell me I'm not going to succeed. And, our country has also kind of obviously been built on a lot of ingenuity and a lot of innovation. And I think one of the most fun parts of the whole green thing is people coming up with solutions that, they're not just great for the planet, they're also really cool and a great design and kind of what the future should be regardless of if we're just thinking about sustainability. It's what we should move for in great design and in smarter thinking and better ways to live our lives. So I think that if you even take the principle out, as you were saying, take this idea of guilt out or this ticking clock out of the equation, even if you do that, you're still going to have a whole bunch of motivated people going, I just want to live as well as I possibly can live and have a great life and do great things. And I think that, that's kind of at the center of why people put themselves in this group and say, I want to be part of this group that's doing good things for the planet, because it's more than just racing against the clock to save the planet. It's about joining a group of people who, as you can look around this room and see, who make beautiful things and create a better life for all of us. So I'm hopeful in many ways.
I like that. I think you're right about the American ingenuity, and I think there's a convergence that's actually a really positive thing. There's a big push for energy independence in this country, as there well should be. And I'd like to see, capitalism become a catalyst for the green movement. And I think you're going to see that with the new president, I hope, and that there will be a real focus on renewable energy sources and incentives for that innovation to be inspired. So I actually think we're going to see a big change. And I know my clients see this as an ongoing trend. This is not a short-term thing. We're not going to go back to SUVs and gas guzzlers, but we also have to be like Europe, with wind power and solar power. We have to embrace it, and it's going to come from small businesses and inventors and entrepreneurs. And I think there's an inkling of understanding of that in Washington. It's always darkest before the dawn, so I'm very optimistic that we're going to see a real proliferation of alternatives and a real change. And I think you're right, it's going to be continued by our kids because they live and breathe it, and it's authentically part of their DNA. So it's going to be perpetuated and sustainable.
Great.